Chefeteers, I'm Chef Nakia, and I want you to be more confident in the kitchen, and I want you to cook really delicious, unique, exciting meals, and I want you to also cook quickly and conveniently for you. And I don't want you to feel like you need to spend 2 hours in the kitchen every night to make a delicious, unique, exciting meal. Sometimes I think that the idea of, a quick and convenient meal and then a unique, flavorful, super exciting meal is somewhat of a contradiction. Like it's really hard to have both at the same time. And I don't agree with that. I do think that you can definitely have unique, exciting meal while also getting into the kitchen, cooking that meal, and getting to enjoy it in no time. Now, I will say there is a bit of a caveat, and that is to novice cooks. If you are very early in learning about cooking and getting familiar with different ingredients and your own palate and cooking methods, it is going to be a little bit more challenging to immediately achieve a quick meal that's also maybe has some flavor or texture complexity. There is an amount of practice and experience and exploration that definitely helps these two things be true at the same time. And so you'll put the time in somewhere, and you'll put the reps in somewhere. So if you are, very novice to cooking, but you want to get to a point where cooking quick meals and cooking unique meals is not contradictory, then I would recommend that whenever you have a chance, maybe plan half of a weekend day or, chunks of time, like an hour or two, to really focus on expanding your skills in the kitchen. And those chunks of time, when you're in the kitchen longer, will build that foundation so that you can cook super flavorful, exciting meals in the blink of an eye. And of course, for every person, the way that you define a quick meal is going to be different. For some people, a quick meal might mean less than 10 minutes. For others, it might be between 20 and 30 minutes. Maybe for other people, it could even be a little bit longer than that. So, of course, you get to define what a quick meal means for you. Same with exciting, flavorful, complex meals. So let your personal preferences guide what you think constitutes a really amazing, exciting meal. Really what I'm trying to portray with this is that you don't have to give up flavor and quality for time. Sometimes there might be a little bit of a trade-off, but really one of my biggest goals with this channel is to help cooks at home so that they can achieve both, convenient, stress-free meals where you don't feel like you're giving up on the quality of the flavor or the texture. And you're telling yourself, man, I cook better meals at home than what we would get if we went out to the restaurants around us. Maybe not better than Michelin star restaurants, and if you're going to those every week, then invite me next time. Types of restaurants that you might go out to the most frequently, you're saying, you know what, I can cook better meals than that at home. And before I get into the specific tips that I have for you for how to achieve this quick and delicious meal, I do want to go over some beliefs that I have about cooking at home and cooking in general. So I believe that cooking is absolutely an experiment. Every time it is an experiment. And to me that makes it more fun. It puts less pressure on, trying to achieve perfection by any way. It's an experiment, it's an opportunity to see what the result will be. And even whenever you maybe have a strong hypothesis, like, oh, I grilled chicken over this type of heat on my gas grill last month and I'm gonna do it the same way again. I really enjoyed the chicken last time. I will probably get really delicious chicken this time again. if I'm doing the same thing. You might have a strong hypothesis. However, once you finish grilling and you sit down to eat, you might say, oh, this is actually pretty different. And then you can think back, oh yeah, I marinated the chicken overnight this time because I kind of forgot about it. And the couple weeks ago, I only marinated it for like an hour and a half. And I actually preferred the hour and a half marinade over the overnight marinade, right? And so even though you felt like you had a strong hypothesis, you might be able to learn a little something new about your palate and some of your, preferred ways of working with your food. I think that remembering that cooking is an experiment helps each meal come together with a little bit more fun, a little bit more creativity, and a little bit more curiosity. And have confidence in your cooking skills wherever they may be. Even if you haven't been cooking for very long and you don't necessarily feel like you have a like super long list of cooking skills under your belt, be confident in what you do know and in what you have experienced and the ingredients in which you are very familiar. Having that confidence and building on that confidence allows you space to invite more creativity in, and whenever you can be more creative, oftentimes that's whenever more of these unique and more complex dishes and also potentially cats, hi Smokey again, okay, come in to play in the kitchen. Okay, maybe you don't want your cats playing in the kitchen, obviously, but the culinary inspiration can come play in the kitchen. And the more comfortable that you get with that, the easier it is to add extra little things as you're quickly cooking to make a basic dish really come together with a lot more complexity and excitement. So every time you cook, think of it as an experiment and be confident in the skills that you do have so that you can build on to those skills and invite more creativity and fun and joy into the kitchen. Okay, so I'm gonna go over a few tips that you can incorporate into your cooking life to make this statement true that you can cook quickly and have a resulting super flavorful, exciting, delicious meal. The easiest first steps you can do is take a tried and true recipe that you have, that you've cooked many times, that you feel extremely confident in cooking, as in you either don't look at the recipe anymore, or once you are looking at it, you're like, oh yeah, I remember it is a cup of tomato paste and whatnot. We're like, probably you could just do it from memory. One of those recipes that as it's coming together, if anything is slightly off, you can see it and notice it right away because you're that familiar with it. Take one of those recipes that you love and think, what other flavor might be super delicious with this? All right, so take one of those recipes and add a flavor in that you think would go well. And so that can be as simple as adding an extra herb or spice, or if maybe you use red wine vinegar, maybe you try balsamic vinegar one time, or a sherry vinegar. Or you can be as bold as just adding a completely new vegetable, or if you don't want to add a brand new flavor, you can, kind of like the vinegar example, you can substitute one ingredient for a different ingredient. So maybe it calls for sriracha sauce, but instead you want to see what gochujang would taste like in there. And so you're just making a little bit of a unique substitution. And the more times that you do that, and you get confident with how much substituting in and out you do, then you might even be able to make that recipe without even looking at the recipe at all and just tossing in whatever you have on hand. One of the best ways to prevent food waste by ingredients going bad is by getting confident just substituting in all kinds of different stuff. So by starting with just one change here and there with a recipe that you're very familiar with, if something doesn't look right or tastes off, you will know exactly what it is, and the next time you can try a different substitution. Keep doing that until you find some stuff that you really, really like, and you've built your confidence in that, swapping out a single ingredient. kind of in line with that, if you are substituting different things or trying to put different ingredient combinations together and it sounds a little off the wall to you, like maybe curry powder and white cherries, like you might hear that and say like, I have no idea if that would actually taste good together or not. Or like lemon and basil, that might seem like a pretty basic pairing for some people. It might feel a little unfamiliar for others. You can always Google those two ingredients next to each other, and especially if you know what type of dish you want to use it in. So maybe it is a pasta or whitefish or chicken dish or whatever. Just Google that and see what types of recipes come up. And pay close attention to the images that surface, and don't just take an image coming up as confirmation that they've definitely used that flavor pairing. Click into it a little bit and just make sure that, you know, whatever picture, whatever blog article or recipe video or whatever comes up is pretty legitimate. Like it looks like something that if you got served it at a restaurant, you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm excited about this. And if there are not very many results that come up that really match what you were searching, I'm not saying that it's not going to be a good flavor combination, but it might be a sign that you might not be on quite the right path. Like I said, I do love experimenting, so something like that, most of the time I'm going to try it anyway. But for people who maybe aren't quite as familiar or confident with their palate and their own personal preferences, if you do look a combination up, you don't see much that really looks like a solid meal come up from like search results. There aren't really any recipes that seem to have that combination, then maybe skip it for now. Consider thinking about it. And in the future, you know, if you just have both of those ingredients left over from other meals you've made, maybe do a little test batch of something to see what you like. But maybe don't make it your main flavor profile for dinner if you aren't quite as adventurous of an eater. Another thing that really helps make these quick and exciting meals a reality is having a very well organized kitchen. And this includes like the fridge, pantry, freezer, and also all of your equipment. And everybody's kitchen is going to be laid out differently, you know, different style cabinets, or like galley kitchen versus open concept versus having an island, not having an island, and sizing wise. So you may or may not have, you know, necessarily designed your kitchen in the way that it is today. How can you work with it the way that it is today so that it like helps you as you're prepping your food? Some ideas of how to do this are to keep your cutting boards and your knives close together. That way, whenever you reach for a cutting board, you can reach for a knife at, you know, pretty much the same motion. Maybe all of your like shredders, graters, things like that are all in the same cabinet or on the same shelf. That way you know exactly where they are, and you know, knowing where everything is, everything always being put away in its place is definitely helpful so that you don't have to search around stuff. And then keeping that cutting board and knife in the area where you're doing most of your chopping makes a lot of sense, and keeping your pots and pans really close around the stove makes a lot of sense. Okay, big kitchens and small kitchens, they each have their pros and cons, right? Because in a small kitchen, you're gonna be pretty close to everything you need anyway. And in a bigger kitchen, you might be, you know, walking around a little bit further. You might have more stuff to remember where exactly it is. However, I think that just taking an afternoon and really thinking through, okay, what equipment am I going to be using in which areas, and what do I tend to use together at the same time, and organizing your kitchen in that way can really save a lot of time every time you go and cook. Another thing that can help a lot, of course, is with the fridge and the freezer, because if you have a bunch of leftover ingredients in food storage containers that you can't see through, then you have to take the time to open each one to find what you're looking for. In the freezer, as well as you can, label stuff so that it's really easy to see exactly what you have and how old it is, because there's nothing worse than centering a meal around an ingredient and then it's freezer burnt and you have to go to the store for new stuff anyway, or just cook a completely different meal and that can throw you off of your game and make what should have been a quick yet flavorful meal maybe not so quick, and also maybe not quite as flavorful and complex as you had wanted. Kind of in that same vein with being on top of what ingredients that you have on hand and where they are, is also being very realistic about the equipment needed for the recipe or the meal that you are wanting to make. So for example, if you want to make a pesto sauce, but you don't have a food processor, you could use a blender, you could like chop your leaves really small and chop your nuts and everything. It's not impossible to make a pesto without a food processor. However, the food processor does simplify and speed up the pesto making process. So, I love a good homemade pesto sauce, of course, but maybe you would buy that from the store if you don't have a food processor, but you really want to use a pesto in your meal and you want it to come together quickly. There's nothing to say that you can't take that store-bought pesto and add some fresh lemon zest in it to bring a little bit more zing. Maybe your version of a flavorful, more complex meal is taking something store-bought and adding a little bit of extra stuff into it, like the pasta sauces and things like that, to make it fit your personal preferences more and add some of that extra fresh flavor. And it might sound like a small one, but having sharp knives can help a lot. It can actually cut down on the amount of time that it will take, because the sharper your knives, the more consistent your knife skills can be. You can work a lot quicker whenever you have the confidence that the knife is going to slice through whatever you are cutting, like very easily. And when knives get dull, they have more of a chance of slipping, which leads to a higher chance of getting a cut or something. So dull knives are more dangerous in general, but they also it takes more time and concentration with a dull knife, because you are being so careful that that knife is actually slicing through the food. You don't have that same confidence with a super sharp knife of just like go, 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 go. And like something that goes pretty well into that is your knife skills. So practicing your knife skills and getting confident chopping. You can always look up YouTube videos where they will, show the basic knife cuts, like a small, medium, and large dice, and a julienne and allumette, and those kinds of things. But even more basic than that too, it's just like holding the knife properly and holding the food properly with the claw. And depending on the type of knife that you have, like if it's like a Japanese style knife or a German made knife, more of a rocking motion or more of a slicing motion, or whatever the ingredient is, having the right knife and using the correct motion with the knife for the cut that you are doing with the specific ingredient that you are doing is very important. And building your confidence just in that area will help your prep time go a lot quicker, and then that means that your meal can come together a lot quicker too. And the last one is all about meal prep, and I will link a video up here about meal prep that I've done. On this channel I talk a lot about meal planning and meal prepping because it can save you so much time once it comes to the actual food preparation. If you have a great, efficient, smart, realistic plan and you've done some prepping ahead of time, as in maybe practicing some of those knife skills on some of those different veggies and things, every bit of meal prep that you do comes back to help your meals come together so much quicker, every time you cook throughout the week. And as I said, it can be as basic as like washing and chopping your vegetables, like onions and bell peppers and carrots and all of those kinds of things. You can also make side dishes, like large batches of side dishes. So each night you just focus on the main like protein. Any meal prep stuff that you can do ahead of time, not only does it save you from the actual like energy and work of doing it the night that you're cooking, but it also helps with decision fatigue. So whatever's already prepped, you've already made whatever decisions to like make that be what it is right now. So you might have a little bit more energy and excitement to make some decisions about the food that you're making and add in an extra ingredient or an extra flavor component, like a unique flavor pairing maybe, or you can think through the textures and maybe add in a different ingredient that will bring a more complex texture to your dish. Being able to not feel bogged down in so many decisions, it opens up your creativity and your excitement to do some of these there can be very quick additions to your meals that end up making them super flavorful, way more exciting, and they're really not taking much more time at all to incorporate. It's kind of just like the openness in your mind where you can think about them and decide, oh yeah, I'm gonna put this in now, and this is the right step to do this, ta-da. So again, the more that you do this, the more you will build your confidence, and confidence in the kitchen really does breed creativity and fun in the kitchen. And whenever there's more creativity, that's whenever you're gonna have these really exciting meals. Like for example, last night in less than 20 minutes, I made Israeli couscous, because couscous cooks so quickly. Even, the slightly larger Israeli one still cooks super fast. And then I did some cod. I just melted butter in a pan, threw the cod in, seasoned it with some salt and some curry powder, and then I had some white cherries from the farmer's market, and I just, pitted those, tossed them in, threw a little bit of white wine in that, and it was a really delicious, amazing meal. Topped it with some parsley at the end. And of course, we could have had a side salad or roasted veggies or, other stuff with it too. But just that Israeli couscous, curry cod with white cherries, the wine, helped it cook down into a little bit of a sauce. It was unique. It was not like a meal I've had personally anyway at a restaurant. It was fun, and it came together in 20 minutes. So, of course, know your palate, know your preferences, because that might not sound like a delicious meal to everybody, but I do hope that this video has encouraged you to be more creative in the kitchen and not let the fear of spending so much time in the kitchen move you away from being creative and creating really exciting meals in the kitchen. So that's all for this time. Thank you, Chefeteers, so much. I hope you have beautiful, delicious, exciting culinary adventures in your future. Thank you, Chefeteers.